I want to talk about how I deal with an environment of basically exponential complexity. And the short answer is kind of a form of controlled reductionism. Like, I had a comment. Let me see if I can dig it up. Yeah, this is what inspired it. Nobody saw the current variant of AI that we have coming. Like, no one. No one in art, no one in fiction, no one in the relevant sciences, no one in the unrelated sciences, no one ever anywhere, as far as I know, predicted that AI would be doing the humanities before doing STEM: science, technology, engineering, mathematics. You know, it has been a trope and a truism since the concept of autometry, automatons and related phenomena. If that's, I know that's not a word, but you see what I'm saying. The whole field of automatons, like mechanical clocks. No one. That's really really weird. And it exposes a huge problem with our species' ability to parse the most complex systems, which is, of course, everything as a single system, the most complex possible system. And that got me thinking about, like, on a personal level, how do people deal with that, and how do I deal with that, and why is it I can continue writing and speaking and thinking and stuff. Like, why don't we just lock up, which is an interesting thing by itself. You'd think people would just drop over. We do have locked in syndrome, catatonics, nervous breakdowns, but none of that really looks like a computer locking up. People don't just see something on a screen and freeze and drop unless they have epilepsy, right? But anyway, so it got me thinking about complexity and all of that. And I realized that how I do it is I retreat to first principles. And I was talking about how the large scale AI thing, it's like, it shows that society has fundamentally fucked up. If none of us saw that coming, I mean, it blindsided absolutely everybody, despite our intense efforts to be cognitively diverse, support mutation, that whole thing. Survival of any species over time requires reserves of mutants capable of exploiting or resisting opportunity. Support mutation. A great little cute thing that encapsulates the advantages of remixing, randomization, and whatnot. Diversity is strength. It truly is. And so when you're, like, looking at such a failure of society to process this thing that is so important and so inevitable, and just completely drop the fucking ball in the most general sense, it's like, we forgot. We didn't predict that it was going to be the humanities first. That's really, really a big failure. So that kind of implies that from an information processing standpoint, we need to just scrap the whole program. It means that nothing anywhere ever worked, right? We can just assume, we can just show that none of it worked. And if we ever find the one guy that did predict it, or girl, we need to look at them real close. Look at their life. Look at how they arrived at that. Look at the context around I mean, it's really important. So that concept of defaulting to first principles, going back, scrapping what you've done, being like, all right, this is obviously not working. Time to, evade the sunk costs fallacy, see what we can do. And I realized that from an information processing standpoint, I do that constantly, because I know enough about everything to know that I don't know hardly anything about anything, right? It's like, I know I'm not a mathematician, I know I'm not a biologist, I know I'm not a historian, etc., etc., etc. And there's a billion subspecialties because there's, petabytes of data on every possible fucking subject. And we're not in Aristotle's time when the planet's supply of textbooks numbered in the double digits and you could like get through them in a fucking month if you just sat down and read. So, you know, the idea of just having all the information and holistically knowing it all is just, now, using all data as a training set and producing AIs from it is kind of an interesting form of compression, and it's an interesting way to actually do that, but that's kind of outside human capability at the moment. And so how I deal with this, you know, unswimmable ocean is first principles. I reduce. And my first principles are based on the fact that I feel stuff. It's the only thing I know to be absolutely true. Everything else could be brain in a jar. Everything else could be completely fake. And, you know, I have no way of knowing if it is or isn't. So how do I move forward? I build on the one thing that I know, that I feel stuff, and some of it's good and some of it's bad, and it has characters and facets and stuff, and that's aesthetics and preferences, and that's all fun, but I don't really dig into it super deep. Just the core principle that I have phenomenal consciousness. I feel qualia. Red looks a certain way to me, you know, chili tastes a certain way to me, and it's like, you have similar stuff. I'm choosing to believe that as a rule. Like I'm consciously avoiding solipsism, despite people being very, very different from me, to the point to where I could come to believe that they're, you know, philosophical zombies. You know, lights are on, nobody home. Like there's no qualia consciousness in there. But I feel like the risks are too much. That's like Black Mirror territory. They don't feel pain the way we do. You know, I'm not going to go thinking in those directions. I'm not going to make excuses for suffering. I'm going to attack suffering, whether I have proof that it's there for real or not. You know, it's better to err on the side of caution on that front for me, because that's what because I can't make that argument to like a copy of me. If there was a duplicate of me that experienced consciousness, I would not be able to prove to them that I feel stuff. So in order to avoid that situation where I am confronted with convincing someone of something that I can't convince them of for my own survival and comfort, I assume that everyone has already made that convincing argument and act accordingly. So it just makes sense to me, as a matter of self-defense, if nothing else, to basically be moral, you know, to hold everyone else to the same value level as I hold myself, as much as I can possibly allow. And this has some cool side effects in the sense that, like, I read a comic series and I loved it so much. It was called Transmetropolitan, and it had a lot of transhuman elements and stuff in the before the WEF version, you know, in the 90s, early 2000s, innocent futurist sense. The rosy glasses optimism of the technology will save us all, which I was a strong believer and adherent, you know. Anyway, shit, where was I going? Hold on, I need to pause and catch my thought again. Cool side effects, yeah. Okay. There's a comic I read, Transmetropolitan, and in that book, it's well, graphic novel, whatever. There's people who have been in the past frozen and are being revived. And in the plot, there's this trope that revived people get brain locked because the environment they're waking up into is so radically different from everything that they know that they just have information short circuit. And I've always felt like that wouldn't happen to me. And if that's true, if it's possible to happen to others, you know, speculating why would it happen to this character and not me? And I think it's because I could handle, like, maybe not physiologically, like you could I'm sure you could hack my hardware, right? I can be anesthetized. I can be, you know, stunned. But, like, in terms of cognitive breakdown, I don't think that's something that can apply to me. Like, whatever situation I'm in, I may react badly, you know, I may react wrongly, but I'm not going to just stop reacting. I'm not going to go insane. Like the Lovecraft stuff. Oh, the non-Euclidean and it drives you nuts. I don't think that would work on me unless it was autonomic, you know, like stuff before, stuff underlying my consciousness, you know, my optic processing, audio processing, whatever. You'd have to hack that stuff, the firmware, not the operating system. So, and what enables that is I can look at a complex situation and basically just apply that ultra simple axiomatic floor to it. You know, it's like I can just look at it and survey its impact on pain for me and others, suffering for me and others, joy, life for me and others. And by those metrics, I can get my foot in pretty much any cognitive door. That's why I feel like I can intelligently discuss pretty much every topic, because it's easy to apply a heuristic. A heuristic is a simple rule that you follow that, when, you know, followed, creates complex emergent phenomena. And the more time I devote to applying my simple rule to a topic, the more elaborate it becomes, you know. And I feel like that's something that maybe people would be interested in. You know, there is this simple heuristic. It really is just oppose suffering. You know, there's some caveats, of course, like, you know, don't fall into the various utilitarian traps. Don't paralyze yourself with pleasure, because that will just cause suffering outside you. And it will also shorten your own ability to experience pleasure. It's brain in the jar stuff. You know, you need to, or vampire in the coffin stuff. You need to post ghouls and guard dogs, make sure nobody stakes you while you're asleep, kind of thing. You don't want to retreat into a delusion world that it causes you to wander into traffic, right? With those caveats, those type of caveats in mind, just reduce suffering. And of course, the paperclip maximizer type logic, don't, you know, cure the disease by killing the patient. I'm not talking about that either. You know, you avoid all that monkey paw, unfair shit, then you arrive at a really, really simple way to parse anything, no matter how complex it is. It's like I look at the massive complex thing and it's like, okay, I can see its impact on things around it. Is it hurting stuff? Well, then it's probably bad. Is it not hurting stuff? Well, then it might be good and it deserves further study. But in the meantime, we will, you know, give it room. And it's like, that's pretty much the basis of everything I think about everything. It really is the core organizing principle that I've arrived at. You know, you're born into this information space, and then you start drilling down as you develop and start asking questions. Why is the sky blue? Why do I have toes? Why is the grass green? Why is it wet in the morning? You know, and all these fucking questions. And you start, forming a picture, and that's where I am. So that's the ground floor, and I thought maybe I should share that ground floor for others if they want to build on it as well.